This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com. This is something that in hindsight is rather interesting. Meltzer writes, "This isn't to say anything will transpire, but WWE has greatly changed their thoughts on AJ Styles. Styles considers New Japan his home right now and he's under contract there, but WWE, with wanting 3 touring brands next year, looking to load up on as much quality talent as it can for 2016. Styles fits into the NXT philosophy in wanting athletic wrestling catering to a specific fan base, and as a separate brand with a part-time deal, the idea of someone 38 or so and developmental is a completely different dynamic than it was a year ago. The other advantage in this is significant as NXT works a lighter style for the most part. The idea that guys who are feeling the effects from years of working the blowaway matches on the indie scene or in Japan will be able to, at least in theory, use the names they developed in the hardcore community, but be able to work like Finn Balor does, which is good matches, getting over by rep, goodwill, and solid work without beating up their bodies as badly. With Styles, it may be a financial thing in the sense that he's probably making 3 to 4 times what anyone in NXT is pulling in, and he has more home time with his family than he'd have with a full-time WWE deal. So unless it's something like come in for a quick program between Japan tours, the idea of going full-time here makes no sense for either side unless it's a main roster spot with a good push." Well, we know how that worked out. AJ Styles is someone who was, considered TNA homegrown talent, even though he was in WCW for a cup of coffee at the end. And then a lot of people wondered, would he ever get a shot here? He had a couple of tryouts, and for whatever reason, Vince never pulled the trigger. Perhaps it was because of his supposed lack of size, but now he's really made a name for himself in TNA and even in New Japan, winning the big belt over there. Were you surprised when AJ came in? I mean, it felt like if it was going to happen, it probably would have happened by this point.
No, I wasn't surprised. I was pleasantly surprised, and I had pushed for AJ. There was a point in time when Cena had about run out of opponents, and I was on that whole ride with John, for all those years, more than a decade, I would imagine. And we were sitting there, and I was talking to him, and it was when TNA was doing well, and I would watch their show, not every week, not every other week, probably because I was just too busy and, suffering from burnout on wrestling. But I was sitting there with Cena one afternoon. We're sitting out there backstage at a table. I said, John, it would really beef up the company if we would go out and we would steal Bobby Roode, AJ Styles, and the Cowboy, who was Bobby Roode, or James Storm. If you just brought those 3 guys in, it would just give you a whole plethora of new opponents. It would give a lot of guys new opponents. And that's just those 3 guys that I singled them out because of their work and their psychology and just things that I knew I could benefit helping them, and they would catch right on, and they would be a very, very good fit. And, the fact is, John looked at me and said, "Hey, we've got NXT, we make our own stars." And I'm sure he was just transferring, Vince's psychology to me when he said that. But I knew at that time what those guys could do in a match for John if you just gave them 6 to 9 months to come in and get over. But you would have to push them the right way, just like they were a fresh 25-year-old body guy that you had hoped the stars for, and that's what comes from the top. That's the deal. We want them young. We want them to have great physiques, great athletes, and we'll bring them in and we'll build them. Well, these guys had their experience. They already had their teeth cut on the indies, TNA. They were experienced. They were ready. You could bring them in day one, debut them on Raw, debut them on SmackDown, and you had a player. And so AJ Styles and Bobby Roode and Cowboy, they were all on my radar for a while before they ever made it.
Are you surprised that James Storm never really got a run? I mean, we know Bobby Roode has done great not only in NXT, but on the main roster. Cowboy did a cup of coffee at NXT and then back out again. What do you think has kept James Storm away from WWE?
Well, I don't know if it was his choice, if the meeting didn't go the way he wanted it to go, if the money wasn't right. You never know in those situations. I saw him where he had came down to an arena close to his home, and I don't remember, where he lives or anything right now, but I just, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing here? How are you? Blah, blah, blah. You don't get to talk to anybody. They said, yeah, just sit tight. So, he had a meeting or two, I think. Any company, I would think, would benefit from having a veteran like that on their crew. And, if it's a guy that can get over and it's a guy that can go out there and day one give you a main event match, you're just ahead of the game. You don't have to groom that guy. You don't have to teach him. Just let him go and let him do what, you look at that lineup that's at NXT now. I would say there are a lot of guys that have a lot of experience on that crew and a few rookies the way it should be, instead of just having all rookies and one or two guys with some experience, which has been the case, throughout history.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.